Hello and welcome to the State of the Fleet Industry, a weekly video series produced by Automotive Fleet magazine and which is sponsored by Enterprise Fleet Management. I'm Mike Antich, editor of Automotive Fleet, and today I'd like to examine what's occurring in the fleet industry for the week of June 21, 2021. And I'm not sure if you realize it, but last Thursday, June 17th, 5 days ago, was a historic milestone that occurred in the annals of the history of vehicle remarketing. And so you might be asking yourself, what happened? Why is this date so important? Well, last Thursday, June 17th, was the conclusion of the 2021 Conference of Automotive Remarketing, what's otherwise commonly known in the industry as the CAR Conference. So again, you ask, why is this important? Well, here's why. This was the very first, and let me repeat, it was the very first in-person conference that was held in our industry since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. And just as important to being the first conference, the conference was a huge success, which is good news to everyone in the remarketing and fleet industries who want to attend future industry conferences. And the conference proved that there's a huge pent-up demand for the return to in-person networking at educational events. And I refer to it as cabin fever. People want and need to meet in person. And second, this is good news for all subsequent industry conferences that'll be taking place through the balance of this calendar year. It's proven that you could have a safe and successful conference in a post-COVID environment. People are ready for in-person events, and the overwhelming majority of people who will attend in-person conferences are fully vaccinated. And after 15 months of surviving this pandemic, we as an industry have the safety protocols down pat. We know what to do and we know what not to do. And I, for one, am looking to attend in person the upcoming NAFA conference in September, the AFLA conference in early October, and the Global Fleet Conference at the end of October. But that's not to say that everything is milk and honey in the industry. There continues to be significant pain points that continue to impact the management of our fleets. And the first pain point is that we're continuing to work through what seems to be an endless backlog at individual state DMVs. And this continues to be a very painful process. And as we all know, and in fairness to the DMVs, the pandemic forced them to either close or reduce their capacity or to only be open by appointment, which has lengthened the time to register and title fleet vehicles. And on top of this, 40 states, 40 out of 50, have made significant changes to their standard vehicle registration and titling procedures during the pandemic, which is tough if you're operating a nationally dispersed fleet. But what's helped to mitigate some of this pain is that about 30 states, you can register and title new vehicles electronically. And if you're selling used vehicles, there are 24 states that allow you to electronically change registration and title. But as we all know, historically, title and registration has been a very manual, paper-intensive process, varying from state to state, depending on individual state DMVs. And many of these regulations that govern these DMVs were written back in the 1950s, 1960s, long before the development of the internet, e-commerce, and digital documentation capabilities. And the silver lining to all of this, especially the silver lining in the wake of this pandemic, is that the pandemic is being viewed as the catalyst, as a potential turning point that will lead to the accelerated adoption of electronic registration and digitization of the title process. And I, for one, share this belief, and I hope that states allocate the budgets to accomplish this. So the next pain point, and that is the increasing number of states that are legalizing the recreational use of marijuana. And as we've all suspected and thought would happen, studies by the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety, IIHS, and the Highway Loss Data Institute confirm that there is an increase in crash rates in states that have legalized the recreational use of marijuana. And in particular, this study focused on the states of California, Colorado, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington, all of which legalized the retail sale of marijuana and the decriminalization of the recreational use of marijuana. And the studies have shown that the crash rates did indeed jump in all of these states due to the combined use of marijuana and alcohol by drivers. And according to the IIHS study, in these 5 states, there was a 6% increase in injury crash rates, and more importantly, a 4% increase in fatal crash rates compared to other Western states where marijuana continues to remain illegal. And this promises to be a growing problem in the future as more states decriminalize the use of recreational marijuana. And for my third and final pain point, I'd like to discuss what continues to be this ongoing inventory constraint. But as we all know, some of this is being offset by record used vehicle prices due to the low inventory of used vehicles. And many of you might not realize how tight that inventory is. And to give you an idea, nowadays, salespeople at dealerships are now getting spiffs of $200 to $400 when they acquire used vehicles at private party sales and then resell the vehicles at the dealerships. And another example, which I just learned of this week, is that some dealers are not selling high demand new vehicles, such as trucks and SUVs, to prospective buyers who do not have a trade-in. The dealers want these trade-ins. They need it to fill out their inventory, or in many cases, to arbitrage these vehicles at auction for a higher price. And while used vehicle prices are at record levels, the rate of wholesale growth is slowing, according to J.D. Power, and we heard this throughout the car conference. And the feeling is that used car prices may have reached their peak. But even if prices start to moderate or even decline, prices have increased so much that it would still be considered a strong used vehicle market despite this downward pressure on pricing. And in terms of new vehicle sales, despite these inventory constraints, the auto industry is on track this year to sell 16.4 million new vehicles. That's retail and fleet combined, which ain't too shabby. And the forecast is for total automotive sales to increase to 17.2 million for calendar year 2022. So my closing comment, as we approach the opening of order banks for 2022 models, order early. And until then, I would like to conclude my State of the Fleet Industry presentation for the week of June 21, 2021, and thank you for watching.